All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Front Funders November 2021 Pitch Perfect event. Thrilled to have you all here for today. For today's Pitch Perfect presentation today, the presentation may contain forward-looking information. There can be no assurances that forward-looking information will prove accurate, and actual results in future events could differ. So do not place undue reliance on this information. So to get things started, I would like to turn the mic over to Murray to tell everyone a little bit more about Citizen.
So welcome everybody to the Pitch Perfect event with Front Funder. I'm delighted to be able to demonstrate what we have built over the last little while today. Let me tell you a story about the origin of democracy's social network called Citizen. First thing is that we all know democracy is a mess. And right now, countries across the world are starting to lose the battle against totalitarianism, against extremism, against sensationalism, against fake news, against information that is potentially harmful. And that the consequences of that can't be overstated. We're starting to see that dialogue has been removed from our society and our political process, and nobody is listening. In fact, Stanford demonstrates that over 70% of people, if presented with evidence, wouldn't even change their mind about a policy decision that exists today. That extremism is made worse by social media. And as a consequence of it being made worse by social media, we find ourselves with harms to children, harms to our society, harms to our policymaking. And the Economist Intelligence Unit that measures this says that of 100 democracies on Earth, all of them are in retreat. The consequences couldn't be more far-reaching. We have a solution. We want to create a social network that does away with those things, that is based on artificial intelligence's ability to identify bias, fake news, foreign actors, and threats to the person, allowing people in a country to come together in a productive way. We want one social network per country so that Canadians, Americans, Brits, French people, Germans, etc., can come together and tell their governments what they want. And most importantly, we want to create, and this is where the business opportunity is, the most predictive data set that exists in the world today about democracy and politics in each country. That product is the basis of a business model that will allow our investors to benefit from high growth down the road. As we go and look in the past, what have we done to earn your investment today? Well, first and foremost, the founding team and the partners of the company have invested $1.4 million in building up this company in time and expenses and hard cash. The second thing is we're ready to launch this thing in Canada straight away. The third is that our specifications, our engineering specifications are up to the standard and we're ready to launch. We've already tested our investment in the market with $184,000 angel investment, and this all combined has attracted some very significant supporters to the corporation, including one of the original Microsoft employees, some of the greatest CEOs in tech, founders of very well-known tech companies, entrepreneurs, investors, ex-ministers of cabinet, both federal and provincial, and very well-known celebrities. And so as a consequence, we think our team, also made up of people who understand the political process, who have worked in the trenches in the political process, are ready to take advantage of the greatest timing that is available to any company to enter the market. If we build this, we can change democracy. And we can, more importantly, deliver profit with a purpose. That is that Citizen's goal is to ultimately be user-owned. And so you, the investor, will build this with purpose-based investments, and we will eventually sell this off to the users as we go forward. With that, I'd like to say thank you. I hope you will look at our Front Funder page and consider our investment. We think we've got a novel idea, an amazing team, and more importantly, a bright future. Trieste, I'll pass it back to you.
Amazing, wonderful presentation, Murray. Thank you so much for that.
I'm just going to stop sharing for you.
No worries. I do want to open it up to the Q&A period now as well. So if there are any questions for Citizen, please send them through the chat. The first question that I want to run through is just that, you know, the concept of trying to find a better solution to discuss and talk about democracy is kind of so large in scope and scale. So really, how did the idea for this come about?
Well, that's the best question, right? It sounds like a crazy statement to say you can reinvent democracy. Well, I'll just say this much, okay? It also sounded like a crazy statement that we could have electric cars, and it sounded like a crazy statement that we could have fintech companies out banking the banks, okay? 60% of assets with fintech instead of 40. We always think that. And democracy being a mess and it being such an important thing in our lives really does make it sort of seem like it's over there and it doesn't affect me or I can't affect it. The truth is that's wrong. The fact is that all of politics, the fuel of politics is data. And currently the data sets that are available, there are billions of dollars in every country, including Canada, spent on those data sets already today. The decisions that are made by governments in all cases, including every social media post, every decision, every policy, is fueled by that data. The data that is there today is roughly equivalent to zero productive value. And our thesis is if you can create a real-time dashboard of people's wants, needs, and desires, if you can create a new data set that allows people to participate without having to go to big meetings and craziness just in their pocket, that data set will be one data set to rule them all, as it were, in the Lord of the Rings parlance. And so at the end of the day, we want to create that data set. We want the people to own it. And we think that's a big investment opportunity for investors that are looking at it today. So I think it's a little easier than it is technically, but it's a really big leap mentally that we all have to make. And it took us 2 years to get there too. So I'm not surprised by the question.
Absolutely. The next one I want to get into is just obviously social media platforms exist and they often do more harm towards democracy in many ways than good because it really polarizes, different groups of people. So a couple of the features that I really find interesting within the platform that you're building is things like the anti-bias filter as well as bad actor kind of verification. So can you elaborate on those features a little bit more and how it'll, reduce the spread of misinformation and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we give a lot of guff to social networks, okay? And the truth of the matter is they're wonderful things, okay? They're incredibly powerful, but a monolithic social network is like saying all of society has to be in one room in one hall talking about the same thing all at the same time and expecting that somehow that's going to be constructive. The fact is we need specialized social networks, okay, for something like democracy, because it has particularities that are not prone to want to exist inside of a monolithic tent. You wouldn't want to have a party convention or a political convention and also have a flea market next door, for instance. They're just two different things. If you mishmash everybody together, what you end up with are these unforeseen consequences. We want to take that 13% of traffic that exists on social networks, and we'd like to repurpose it to something a little more focused, a little less harmful. And I don't say that social networks have tried to harm, okay? They haven't. It's inadvertent harm, but that's still harm. What we need is a better way to avoid and eliminate that harm, eliminate the misinformation, the bias. And so we've created a dozen algorithms that are going to contribute to a better quality news feed, a less crazy environment for people to discuss. It's going to moderate dialogue and discourse, and ultimately it's going to return some civility to our beautiful societies.
Absolutely. That's great, Murray. We do have a couple questions through the Q&A that I do want to get to as well.
Sure.
So one of them is just, what is your plan to overcome resistance from distrust of digital media tracking of individuals, barriers to adoption, privacy, things like that?
Yes, and I think that's the most important question, okay? The person who owns this data set, I think, is all important. When we started to look at this and said we're going to reinvent democracy, we also discovered you can't really reinvent democracy if you're going to have the same old social media network where, Murray owns the data set and that's it. And I can do what I want with it from a privacy policy standpoint and other. The truth is, the way we take care of that is that we sell the individual country and therefore the entire data set and the revenue model attached to it to the users. And they collectively, within using the actual app itself, they will decide how the sale of that data will be done, how the advertising will be done against it, how the privacy policies will work. They will decide. I think it's not up to me to tell a Brit or a Canadian or an American or other how they should protect their data or what they should do with it. It's up to them to tell us. We're a tech company. We want to enable them to have great democracies, and our mission, okay, is to reinforce democracy where it lives, to defend it where it's challenged, and to give rise to it everywhere else.
Amazing. We've got one more question that I want to get through as well through the chat from James. Just, will revenue streams for this app be driven by advertising revenue or user fees? I know it's a combination of both, so we can get into that. And then if the revenue is driven by advertising, will those ads be excluded from Google's AI auto ad selection? So is there a verification process to have certain people advertise on the platform? So I'd love for you to get into that.
Indeed. Okay. So let's say we just created an AdWords equivalent or some type of marketplace like Facebook has for advertising on the platform, and we didn't do any curation or we didn't do any applications. What you would end up is with crazy business in ads. We don't want that. Okay, we're not interested in dishwashing soap on the platform. Okay, this is going to be a curated, specialized social network that's going to focus on democracy, and there are going to be rules that govern A, who can advertise, B, what you can advertise, and C, community guidelines that are going to allow everybody to sort of enforce that, not least our AI that will do the same. So our thesis behind this is we again believe that the user controlling the actual data set and the policies, for instance, the ones we're discussing now about advertising, is the best way to guarantee that people have confidence in the system, that there's not some, somebody gerrymandering in the background of the Wizard of Oz with the behind the curtain doing kind of crazy business. It's going to be transparent. It's going to be open sourced. Everybody's going to be able to see it. And if it's wrong, then we'll change it. But that's the key with open source stuff like this. There's nothing hidden. And as a consequence, the confidence in it will rise, we believe.
For sure. Thanks so much, Marie. One final question that I want to get through quickly is just, you are raising $500,000 right now through a common share offering, $1 per share, 250 minimum investment. So to those who are on the call today, can you tell them a little bit just about why they should invest in you?
Certainly. We actually believe that the future of democracy is something a little more important than just sort of the company itself, okay? I think we've now, after COVID, and if not before, we were already entering a new era of capitalism, okay? I think the old way of just rip it out and make as much as you can is kind of over. I think we want a more conscientious capitalism in this world. We want a more inclusive, diverse capitalism. And what Citizen actually does is modifies not just the democratic landscape, but reinforces the capital landscape by repurposing all the profits from the then sold subsidiary to the users, but without hypothecating the investor returns. And so as a consequence, what you end up with is roughly 70% of the revenues that are made within the corporation that every year get thrown off by the corporation. So you can imagine us making something on the order of a LinkedIn or a Facebook, $100 a user in the West as an annual average revenue nut. That's what social media companies are doing now, and it's more. And about 70% of that revenue would actually be left in the subsidiary, and most of that would be profit, okay, because it's a cloud-based business. And so at the end of it, those profits get put into a fund. And that fund is controlled by the users to improve their societies. And we're talking about billions of dollars in each country around the world every year to help fix it. We want to eliminate level 1 and 2 Maslow needs the world over in the simplest way, which is make cash and spend it on the right things.
Perfect. So definitely a profit with a purpose there, as you highlighted earlier. So really appreciate that, Murray. So we did have one more question come through, but unfortunately we are out of time for Citizen.
Okay.
So I will encourage you to have a look at their campaign page, frontfunder.com/citizen. There is a Q&A available to reach out to the company directly on that. Before we do sign off today, for anyone new who's coming to this Pitch Perfect event and may not be familiar with FrontFunder, just wanted to give a quick introduction as to what we do and familiarize yourselves with some next steps that you can take. So we're Canada's leading online investment platform, and we make it easy for all Canadians to invest in the most exciting startups and growth stage business from as little as $250. So obviously you got to hear from 5 great, exciting businesses and investment opportunities today, and we appreciate you all for your time and engagement. In terms of some next steps that you can take, you can go visit frontfunder.com to learn more about making your investment and reach out to our support team at any time with questions. As Graham noted in his presentation, his campaign is closing December 10th. So it is important to head over to that page early to check out that opportunity. And we do have a few other campaigns closing on the 10th as well. So I encourage you to check that out. As some just parting words there, we've got a quote from a relatively famous investor saying the individual investor should act as consistently as an investor and not as a speculator. So you can derive your own meaning from that, but it is important to do your due diligence on all of the offerings. So I encourage you to head to each of the campaign pages presented today. So thank you very much to all of the speakers today. You all did a wonderful job, and thank you to the audience for their time. And we'll hope to see you again on the next Pitch Perfect event. So thanks so much, everyone.